Hello friends. In our earlier discussions up till now we have discussed the problems of our rural areas, and then what are the policies that the government has designed and implemented for rural development. We have also discussed some of these schemes which are basically administered by the Ministry of Rural Development for purpose of aiding and assisting development of rural areas. Now we'll have a look at the other schemes which are there, but they are spearheaded by other ministries and other departments of the government. The brief discussion about which particular ministry is administering which particular scheme, that is there in the beginning of this unit, and we have already seen that, we have already had that discussion, so I'm not going to now touch upon the particular ministry which is administering. I'll only be talking about this scheme. So the next scheme that is to be discussed now is Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushalya Yojana. Now basically you can understand Gramin Kaushalya Yojana, it is something related to skilling the people in the rural areas. This is basically part of National Rural Livelihood Mission, which we have discussed in the last video discussion. It was launched in 2014 in the first term of the current Modi government. The target segment was the youth in the age group of 15 to 35 years, and the whole objective was to provide placement linked skill training, demand driven placement linked skill training to this target segment. Demand driven means the demand has to come from the youth, right? It depends on the demand. So how much training would be provided depends on how many people in the age group volunteer for this kind of training. So basically this is a demand driven program, just like Manrega was. How many jobs would be provided was actually dependent on how many people are looking for jobs under the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So just like that, here also this scheme is a demand driven scheme. Placement link, now this is very important. This particular scheme is placement linked, which means that once the beneficiary, who is a youth in this particular age group, it could be a male, it could be a female, 15 to 35 years, once this beneficiary is given the training and once he completes the training successfully, which means he actually passes the exam and other assessments, then he or she will also be provided placement. So not only are we trying to skill the population living in the rural areas, the youth in the rural areas, but also we are assuring employment for them after they have actually got trained into those skills, after actually they have acquired those skills. So this is a very unique feature of this particular scheme. So again, another objective is to enhance employability of the rural youth so that they may seek employment once they have got some skills, they have acquired some skills through this particular scheme. They can always look for jobs and there is better chance for them to get good paying jobs, to be offered good paying jobs. And then adding diversity to incomes of rural families. What do we mean by this diversity to incomes? Up till now most of them are basically engaged in agriculture, so this was one source of income, the income from the crops, income from their fields. But now we are trying to diversify their incomes. If the youth in these predominantly farming families, farming households, some youth from these families, they are trained into some other skill so that they can have some other job, this would diversify the income stream of these poor families, and they would not always be dependent on agriculture, because now they have got one of the family member employed in a particular business or employed with a particular firm and earning his income from there. So even if there is a crop failure because of natural reasons or because of other reasons, even then the family does not have to worry too much, because one member at least is earning from some different source. So this diversifying of income is of great advantage to the predominantly farming families, farming households. Now the whole mode of implementing this scheme is slightly different. Here the financial assistance is provided to students for attending the training, so no fee is charged from the beneficiaries. In fact, they are provided financial assistance to attend the training, and the training is provided through training partners. The government does not itself provide the training, it actually enrolls training partners, different training partners in different parts of the country. They are given some kind of honorarium, they are paid some money, and in lieu of that, the training partners, number one, they have to assess the aptitude and suitability of a candidate for training. So they have to first of all find out whether this person is suitable to be given a training. Is he suitable as a trainee? Should he be given a particular training or not? Is he suitable? And then if he is suitable, for which particular training is he suitable? Should he be given a training on mobile repairing, or should he be given a training on, let's say, motor car repairing, or should he be given a training on data entry in computer? So the training partner does not only assess whether a candidate is suitable, but it also assesses the training module which best suits the aptitude of the candidate. So accordingly, the training partners have the task of assigning the candidates to different training programs according to their potential and according to their aptitude. And once these candidates successfully complete the training, it is also the task of the training partner to ensure that at least 75% of them they get some jobs. They are actually placed into some jobs. So this is the task which is actually delegated to the training partners. In return, they get paid for running the training programs and for making arrangements for the placement of the successful candidates. So this is how the whole scheme is actually implemented through the training partners. Again, let us talk about the Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana. Now here you can understand, and you can have a look at the logo also. The basic idea behind this is to electrify the villages, the rural parts of the country. Actually, the genesis was the Rajiv Gandhi Gramin Vidyutikaran Yojana, which started in 2005, and then there was a slight modification in the scheme, and of course the name nomenclature also changed to Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana in 2015. The main objective, as I said already, is round-the-clock power supply to rural areas, round-the-clock 24/7 power supply to rural areas, feeder separation for agriculture and household. What does this mean? This means different feeders for the agricultural purpose. In agriculture, if you need to irrigate your fields, you might be running a water pump. For that, you might be requiring power supply. So there's a different feeder for the power which is required for agriculture purpose, and different feeder for power that is required for the household. So the connections that are intended for the households, they will have a different feeder, while the connections that are intended for agriculture related work in the fields, they will have a different feeder. So that is one major feature of this particular scheme. And strengthening of transmission and distribution infrastructure. Now what do we mean by transmission and distribution infrastructure? See, basically, suppose let's say in our state Uttarakhand, there is a Tehri dam where the electricity is getting generated. The water is used to generate electricity. The water stored in the reservoir of the dam is used to generate electricity. And suppose this electricity has to be supplied to people in Bareilly. So there has to be a transmission infrastructure which will transmit the electricity, the power supply, from the point of production, that is the Tehri dam, to the point of consumption, which is the Bareilly city. And from this, so this would be the transmission infrastructure. This would be the company which is engaged in transmitting the electricity. And then there would be a distribution infrastructure also. Now what is the meaning of distribution infrastructure? Once this particular power which was generated in Tehri, it has reached Bareilly. Now from here it has to be distributed to the end customers. So this job would be of the distribution firm, and the infrastructure for that purpose would be very different from the transmission infrastructure, and would be called the distribution infrastructure. For example, the distribution infrastructure will have meters that will keep a tab on how much of the electricity is being consumed by the households. So the transmission infrastructure would be very different from distribution infrastructure. The objective of this scheme is to strengthen both of them, right? As far as the status of this particular scheme is concerned, it is shown to be completed, but then there is a lot of criticism. The completion rates actually have been determined by the government on a slightly different standard. According to the provisions of this particular scheme, even if 10% of the households in a particular village are electrified, then the village would be considered to have been electrified. And that is why, though in official records you find that Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana has successfully achieved all its objective, it may also be because in the villages that have been electrified, only 10% of the households have been connected to the electric supply, and the remaining 90% still are not having access to 24/7 electricity supply. So this is one criticism of this particular scheme. Right, now we are moving on to e-NAM, which is the e-National Agriculture Market. Now you understand what is the meaning of e. You know about emails, you know about e-commerce. So yes, electronic over the internet using the various information communication technology tools. So this is National Agriculture Market, which basically networks the agriculture markets across the country. So this is basically some kind of a virtual network wherein the sellers and the buyers can come together and transact. They can exchange the crops, they can exchange the produce, they can exchange their produce. The farmers can sell it to the sellers, and the sellers can buy it from the farmers. So basically this is some kind of an online market space wherein we have the sellers and the buyers all coming together and transacting, doing business together, right? So it's a unified national market for agriculture commodities. I'll give you a little background. Up till now, if a farmer grows something, he was bound by a particular law to sell it in the nearby mandi, nearby market, and most often he had to sell it to the intermediary. Now with the coming of e-NAM, there is no such foundation for the farmer, because this is an online trading platform and they can basically sell their products. They can basically showcase their product on this particular trading platform, and any seller from any part of the country can order their products. They can sell to any buyer from any part of the country can order these crops, these produces from the farmer can sell to them. So the farmer is not bound to sell to a particular mandi. He can simply sell his wares, sell his crops on the e-NAM, and he can sell to almost any buyer who is willing to purchase his crops or purchase his produce. Is this okay? So that is why it is being called an online trading platform. Now what are the benefits for the farmers? Number one, naturally they will be able to extract better price. They don't have to sell to the intermediary now, and they can look for the best price across the country, and naturally they would be selling where they are getting the best price for their produce. So better price discovery for the farmers. Marketing of agriculture produce, easier for them to market their agriculture produce across the country. Up till now they were selling to a particular mandi and to the intermediaries there. Now they don't have to do that. They can sell across the country, and if their produce is of good quality, naturally it would be easier for them to market their product and sell to almost anybody in the whole country almost any buyer in the whole country. There is no dependence on intermediary or broker also, so naturally you don't have to pay intermediary or broker commission. So the farmers don't have to pay these kind of commissions. Now what is the advantage for the traders? Up till now the traders were purchasing from the farmers. The farmers were bound to sell their produce in a particular mandi, and the traders listed there, they used to purchase it from the farmers who are selling their produce in that particular mandi. But now the traders can also buy from across the country, buy from any mandi across the country using this particular online platform, and they can sell to anybody else across the country. So they have access to national markets for purchase. Up till now they were buying only from a particular mandi. They were eligible to buy only from a particular mandi where they were listed, and so all the farmers which sold their products, who sold their products in that particular mandi, they could have bought only from those farmers. But now they can buy, these traders can buy from almost any farmer across the country who is showcasing his products on the online trading platform. Second benefit is they can go for secondary trading. What do we mean by secondary? The primary trading was when they were actually purchasing the produce from the farmer. Secondary trading, naturally they are not going to consume the whole produce. So what they are going to do, secondary trading would mean, then once they have bought the produce from the farmer, naturally they would be selling it to somebody else. So they generally sell to somebody else, some other trader in some other mandi. This is what basically is secondary trading. So primary trading is when you buy from a particular farmer in a particular mandi, and secondary trading is when you actually sell these goods to somebody else in some other mandi or to somebody else in any mandi. This is basically secondary trading, right? So now they can go for secondary trading also. They can buy from one mandi and they can sell to somebody else in the same mandi or some other mandi. So that is one advantage to the traders. Again, for them the trading opportunities have now increased. They can, first thing, they can buy from wherever they find the best quality, wherever they find the best quality and the best price, where they are getting the best price, they would buy from there, and then they can sell to those mandis or to sell to those other traders who are giving them, who are offering them the best price for their product. So this is the benefit to traders also, and there is benefit to the buyers also. Now who are basically buyers in these kind of markets? Number one are large retailers, then the processors and the exporters. Large retailers, what do these do? Large retailers, they are selling straight away to the customer. For example, Reliance Fresh sells fruits and vegetables to retail customers through retail chains. Reliance Fresh is the brand name of these retail chains. So naturally they need to buy fruits and vegetables in huge quantity, so they can buy from these kind of markets. This E-NAM, National Agriculture Market, they can enroll there and then they can get themselves registered and they can buy from anywhere in the country and according to the quality that they want, right? And second category of buyers are the processors, who process the output of the primary sector, the agricultural output, into various other goods. For example, one example could be PepsiCo, which produces potato chips. So naturally they would require supplies of potatoes, so they can have these potatoes from any farmer across the country through this online trading platform. And then we have got the third category of buyers who export it. So they are buying so that they can export it to different countries. So now they can also buy for purpose of export from any farmer across the country. So there are advantages to all the parties which are involved. So they can all these category of buyers, they can source from national market without any, now they don't have to depend on intermediaries. Up till now what used to happen was they were dependent on intermediaries. So they were not able to buy straight away from the farmers, except for in the case of contract farming, of course. In all other cases they were not able to, so they were basically buying it from some intermediary. So what was happening was the farmer was selling to the intermediary, and the intermediary or the broker was then selling it to these buyers. Now with the e-NAM, with this online trading platform, there is no role of the intermediary, and the buyers can transact directly with the farmers. So this is the advantage to the buyers also. Naturally, they also do not have to rely on the intermediary, and they also do not have to pay the intermediary commission, and they can buy from whosoever they want to. So there is an advantage to these category of buyers also. And then what is the advantage to the customers? There would be a lot of competition in the national agriculture market, the online trading platform, the competition for buying the best quality produce, competition for buying the best quality produce at the lowest possible price. So let's say a retailer is buying from the online trading platform, so he would look for the best quality and the lowest prices, and naturally he would be able to obtain lower prices also, because now he is able to access the whole country. He can look for the lowest prices across the country, across the agriculture markets in the country. So naturally he would be able to buy at a lower cost, and then he would further sell it onward to his customers at a lower cost. And that is why the competition shall lead to stable prices and availability for the customers, stable and relatively lower prices for the customers, and availability would also be ensured. So in a way, with the implementation of this particular scheme, which is under implementation as of now, we are yet to have a fully functional online trading platform, but it has started functioning though, but it is yet to be fully operationalized. So once this happens, all the shareholders, all the stakeholders, which are involved in trading of agriculture produce, all of them, they are going to benefit from this initiative. Now let us talk about the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, which is a very recent initiative, income support scheme for our farmers 2019. That was a provision in the interim budget 2019, and rupees 6,000 according to the provisions had to be paid to eligible farmers in 3 installments, which means every installment of rupees 2,000 each. This was basically an income support scheme because you know that the agriculture in India is not growing at a very fast pace, and secondly, there have been lots of instances of farmer suicides because agriculture has ceased to be remunerative. Agriculture is not helping them generate sufficient returns for their hard work, and that is why so many farmers have committed suicide, and this actually became a very controversial issue, and that is why government in year 2009 thought of launching this particular scheme, wherein as income support to the farmer families, 6,000 were paid in 3 installments, which means every single installment of rupees 2,000 each. So this is basically income support scheme. Naturally, if farming households in our rural areas, they have 6,000 more rupees at their disposal, then naturally there would be an increase in consumption demand in our rural areas. More number of products would be demanded, and this would lead to more demand for goods which are produced in our industries, and naturally more jobs would be created in industries. So in that sense, this can be a very good initiative. Apart from that, once the family has rupees 6,000 more, they can spend more amount on health and education, and this will ultimately help the family to raise their standards of living and to have additional sources of income. As the children grow up and they get good proper education and they are healthy, naturally they would be able to earn more, and the livelihood, the income of the family would increase, and their standard of living would also increase. So in this sense, this is a very good scheme. Now, what are the other facilities for farmers which have been provided by the government, and why are we discussing this? Because most of the population in our rural areas, they are basically from the farming community. So most of them are farmers. So naturally, if you do something for the farmers, ultimately it is going to help, and it is going to aid the process of rural development only. So some facilities which are being provided for farmers, ultimately they can also aid and assist the pace of rural development. So what are these facilities? Kisan call center, you might have You might have come to know of it through the various advertisements that the government does on TV. Kisan call center basically is a call center wherein the farmers can call up for any crop related queries. For example, what is the right time to sow the seeds? What is the right time to harvest the crops? What should be the appropriate mixture of fertilizers? How should cropping be done? Even the weather forecast. So they can ask the Kisan call center. They can call up the Kisan call center and ask the persons who are manning the Kisan call centers, the service personnel there, regarding the weather forecast. So this will enable them plan their crop well, and that is why this particular facility is being given to the being given to our farmers, a free of cost call center where they can call up for all their agriculture related queries. Then we have got soil testing laboratories. What is the meaning of soil testing? You understand? Soil testing basically is done to understand the nutrient profile of the soil. What all nutrients are present in the soil. You know that there are several nutrients, some macro and some micro. Some are required in huge quantities, some are required in slightly lower quantities. So they are called macronutrients and micronutrients. So soil testing laboratory does what? It finds out the nutrient profile. What all nutrients are present in the soil and what all nutrients are not available in the soil. Or in other words, what all nutrients is the soil deficient in, because that will help you decide what kind of fertilizers to use in your field basically. So that is the main job of soil testing laboratories, and government has started setting up soil testing laboratories across the country. And then these soil testing laboratories do what? They issue soil health cards wherein they document the nutrient profile of the soil, and this will be of use to the farmer because according to the nutrient profile of his soil, he can decide which all fertilizers to apply and which all fertilizers not to apply. So for example, if a soil is already rich in nitrogen and the farmer gets to know of it because the soil testing laboratory has tested his soil and then issued him a soil health card with all this information. This is a soil health card. So the farmer gets to know about this. So he would naturally not buy a nitrogenous fertilizer because that is not required. The soil is already rich in nitrogen. He would only go for phosphatic and and potassic. Phosphorus is basically phosphatic and then potassic means potassium. So he would be going for potassic and phosphatic fertilizers only, because through the soil testing laboratory which had tested his soil and issued him the soil health card, he came to know that the soil is rich in nitrogen. So there's no need of applying the nitrogenous fertilizer. We have known that applying fertilizers without looking at the nutrient profile of the soil may lead to excessive use of fertilizers, which is a big cost for the farmers, and secondly it may also lead to soil pollution. Ultimately, when the excess fertilizer seeps down, percolates to the water table underground, then it would also pollute the groundwater. So these kind of issues can be taken care of once we have good soil testing laboratories across the country and they issue soil health cards on a regular basis, on a periodic basis to farmers. Again, soil health card would not be issued once in 10 years because the profile of the soil would keep changing. So for example, if in this particular cropping cycle, if I apply nitrogenous fertilizers naturally, in 3 to 4 months the soil profile would change and it would start demonstrating more nitrogen content in the soil. So soil health cards have to be issued on a periodic basis, maybe every 6 months to 1 year to at least every 2 years. Is this okay? And that would be the joy of the soil testing laboratories. And government is in the process of setting up these soil testing laboratories across the country. Then fertilizer subsidies are provided to the farmers so that they can purchase the fertilizer and they do not have to spend excessively on purchasing these fertilizers, and they can apply these fertilizers to their field and can actually have a good yield. So this is the objective behind providing fertilizer subsidy. Naturally, it also safeguards our food security. It also takes care of our food security, because if the fertilizers are provided to the farmers, their productivity would increase, they would be able to have a higher yield, and ultimately higher yield would mean that we would have more food for various emergencies. So in that sense, it is very, very important for our food security, also for the food security of our country also. Cold storage infrastructures are being provided for our farmers across the country. Why? Because many of the farmers, the produce, for example, specifically those who grow fruits and vegetables. So when the crop comes to the market, let's talk about mangoes. Mangoes start coming to the market in the month of March, April and May. So this is the season when you start harvesting mangoes and you start selling them in the market. So naturally, you start buying mangoes around April and May, right? So April and May and June, these are the seasons when mangoes are being sold in the market. If as a farmer I am growing mangoes and I also start selling in April, May, June, when all other farmers are doing the same, I would not be able to charge a lot of money for my produce. I would not be able to sell it at a higher price. Why? Because there is already a supply glut. Everybody else, all the other farmers are also, who are engaged in mango cultivation, they are also selling their mangoes in the market. So there's a supply glut, a lot of supply, and a lot of supply would mean that the prices would be driven down, and I would not be able to charge sufficient prices for my produce. So then what is the option? The option is that I should be selling my produce in the market when the supply has drawn down, when the supply is reduced. This could happen in the month of August and September, because by that time the other farmers would have already sold all their mangoes in the market. So if I start supplying in the month of August and September, I would be able to charge a higher price for my produce. But then how do I keep my mangoes safe till August and September? For that I need cold storages, and that is why government has come up with these kind of cold storage infrastructures in different parts of the country. The government also incentivizes private sector to set up cold storages, farmer cooperatives to set up cold storages. Apart from setting up their own cold storages, apart from the government setting up their own cold storages, they also incentivize the private sector and the farmer cooperatives to set up these kind of cold storages. So at times they also provide subsidies. So this is the main objective behind setting up cold storage, so that the farmer can store his produce and then can sell it at the appropriate time in the market and can charge a higher price for his produce. That is the basic idea behind the cold storages, and that is why government is setting up these kind of infrastructure in our villages. Now, but then there is one problem. The problem is, let's say this farmer who is cultivating mangoes and then he's selling it, he plans to invest in the new cropping cycle, which will start, let's say, in the month of April and May, or let's say around May and June, in the Jet crop. So he wants to grow some vegetables and fruits like cucumber and vegetables like cucumber and fruits like watermelon and muskmelon also. Now, how would he invest in this new cropping cycle if he has not been able to sell his products in the market? Because what he did was he kept his mangoes in the cold storage, he stored them in the cold storage, thinking that he would sell them in the market around August, September, when the supply is less and when he would be likely to be able to charge more for his mangoes. So he does not have any money as of now, because he has not sold his products. He will be selling them in the month of August, but then he requires money so that he can invest in the next cropping cycle. In the Z cycle, he wants to maybe sow cucumber and watermelon and muskmelon, then sell it in the market. What will he do? He doesn't have any money, and he's not very rich also. Most of our farmers are not very rich. Then for these kind of farmers, the government has come up with another initiative which is called credit against cold storage or warehouse receipts. What is this? Basically, if the farmer stores his product in a cold storage, depending on the volume and the quality of the product that is being stored in the cold storage, the farmer would get a cold storage receipt, and then he can carry this cold storage receipt to a bank which will provide him credits which he can use for the next cropping cycle. And why is the bank providing? Against which security is the bank providing the credit? Against the items that the farmer has stored in the cold storage or the warehouses. And the banks now have the receipts. So if in case the farmer defaults, they can always use these receipts to access those items which have been stored by the farmer, and then the bank can of course sell it in the market to recover the loan amount. Of course the banks would never want to do that, because they would prefer remaining in banking only rather than entering this trading of fruits and vegetables also. But then this is some kind of a guarantee against default risk by the farmer. So the banks have a guarantee. Since they have the receipts, they do not need to worry about the defaults by the farmers. In case the farmer defaults, they can always recover their loans through selling of his produce in the market through the warehouse receipts that the farmer has given to them. So this is the whole idea behind these kind of warehouse receipts. So this particular scheme is a very recent innovation, wherein farmers are now getting warehouse receipts once they are storing their products in the warehouse, and they can go to the banks and the other financial institutions to obtain credit on using these receipts as a security, right? So these are the other facilities which have been created for the farmers. Then we have got the National Optical Fibre Network. This is an initiative of Ministry of Communication. Now what is basically this National Optical Fibre Network? You know, optical fiber is used for communication purpose, right? And you can understand what basically this National Optical Fibre Network is. This basically will be able to provide a broadband connectivity of 100 megabit per second to all the gram panchayats in our country. So the initiative is to network all the gram panchayats in the country through a broadband connectivity of 100 megabit per second, networking 6,25,000 villages in 2,50,000 gram panchayats. So all the gram panchayats would be connected through this particular optical fiber network. The entity which has been set up by the government for this particular purpose is known as Bharat Broadband Network Limited. So this is a particular firm which has been set up for this very purpose, and it is almost about to complete this project, and we can be hopeful that by 2025 we'll have a functioning national optical fiber network with all the 2,50,000 gram panchayats connected network through it. Then what is the main objective? Naturally, the main objective is improving the service delivery. E-government means the services which have to be provided by the government, they can be delivered online. For example, let's say if a marriage certificate has to be issued, now the member, the resident of the village, they don't need to come to the district center and then get the marriage certificate issued. They can apply for the marriage certificate through the computer terminal, and now since they are part of the network, they have access to the network. Their application through the computer terminal, their e-application would reach the district center, and from there the certificate would be issued to them online. They can get it printed at the computer terminal in their village. So this is how e-government works. Again, e-education, tele-education can be delivered using this kind of infrastructure on computer terminals. Classes can be taken by teachers sitting in far off areas in urban locations. They can teach directly, and the students who are connected to this computer terminal in their villages, they can have access to these kind of online education facilities. Likewise, e-health and medicine. People in remote villages, they can access medical consultancy, health consultancy from doctors sitting off in far off areas. So they don't need to go actually to those far off areas to have an interaction with the doctor. They can always get access to him through the network. They can obtain consultancy through this particular optical fiber network using the internet technology. So this is the basic idea behind this communication infrastructure project, and hopefully once we are able to complete this particular project, this would bring about a sea change in the village life across our country. Again, this would also be providing employment opportunity. Naturally, to man these computer terminals in the gram panchayats, or let's say in villages, you would require some people who would be naturally localites and who would of course be trained in using of computers and a little bit of troubleshooting. For example, if somehow the computer crashes down, what are they going to do? If somehow, for example, the internet connectivity is low, they need to switch off the router and then switch it on again. So these kind of troubleshooting, they are provided skills which help them do this kind of troubleshooting, and which helps them manage the computer terminal at the village end or the gram panchayat end. So naturally some jobs would also be created out of this particular communication infrastructure project. Now lastly, we are going to discuss the public distribution system. You know about this public distribution system here in India. Nowadays we call it a targeted public distribution system, because not every single individual or every single household is eligible for benefits under this public distribution system. This is a targeted system. Only some households and some individuals who are eligible, only they are going to be targeted, only they can have access to and they can obtain benefit from this kind of a public distribution system. So instead of PDS, nowadays the term that is used is TPDS, or targeted public distribution system. Subsidized food is provided. Rice, wheat and coarse grains, millets, etc. are provided through this public distribution system. You have got ration shops across the country. So the same is the case with the rural areas also. Daily free cereals are provided for women and lactating mothers. Lactating mothers who have had babies recently and who are feeding them. So lactating mothers and women, daily free cereals for them. And the coverage is 75% population in the rural areas, while this is just 50% in the urban areas. Basically, this public distribution system is not specific to a rural area, but I am discussing it here because again, this is a way of ensuring food security for people, specifically the poor in the rural areas. So the coverage is almost 75% population rural areas, which means 75% of the population in rural areas shall be the beneficiary of this kind of a system, while these percentage is just 50% urban areas. So in urban areas, out of every 2 households, only one household will be benefiting from the public distribution system or the subsidized food, while the case in rural areas is almost 75% of the population, or 3/4 of the population would benefit from this kind of a system. So apart from that, there are n number of schemes which have the development of rural areas as their focus. Now one more example which I can give you is about the Swachh Bharat scheme. Though it was not meant specifically for the rural areas, it was meant for rural as well as urban areas across the country, but the benefits have been disproportionately received by the rural areas. Naturally, because the number of functioning toilets were much less in rural areas and there was less awareness about toilet hygiene in rural areas. So now we know that after the Swachh Bharat scheme, there are so many villages who have almost 100% coverage, in the sense that all the households in the village, they have a functional toilet, and there is much more awareness. There are community toilets also which can be used by the whole community rather than family toilets or household toilets. So this kind of awareness has been brought about. So there are so many different schemes which are there, which have been implemented with the objective of developing the rural areas, but I have only talked about a few of them. However, you are not limited by our discussion here. In case you come across, and you would certainly come across other such schemes and you would get to know about other such schemes, you may please include them while writing your answers in the exams. So for that you will have to keep reading newspapers, and you can access the various government websites also, and you will get to know about a lot of such schemes. And you can always do a field visit. You can visit a village and have a chat with the residents, have a chat with the local Gram Pradhan, have a chat with the government executives like the the village development officer and the block development officer, and therein you will get to know about many more such schemes which have been designed and which are being implemented with the main objective of speeding up the pace of rural development. So thank you very much.